So today I would like to talk with you a little bit about the future of public sector labor relations. And there's a couple of things I want to talk about: the what's happening presently, and then what this possibly means for the future of public employee labor. So I'll make this pretty quick. We've talked a little bit about teacher strikes. So there was a wave of teacher strikes in 2018 and into 2019. And these teacher strikes were happening mostly in states without collective bargaining rights. So when public employees don't have the spot at the bargaining table to negotiate wages and benefits, then they sometimes have to go ahead and use more extreme measures, which would be the strike. So we saw teachers in Oklahoma, West Virginia, shut down the schools all across the state. And uh, it is likely that as long as states keep curtailing these collective bargaining rights, that we might see more labor strife, because some of these collective bargaining policies also had strict strike provisions. So there was a give and take there that the unions gave up the ability to strike in return for a seat at the table to negotiate wages, benefits, and working conditions. So when you don't have that, you sometimes create an environment where your public employees can get desperate and decide to take more extreme measures to make up for the power that they no longer have at the bargaining table or never had to begin with. So we may see in the future more labor strife. We might be seeing more strikes from teachers, maybe other public employees, kind of like we did in the 1960s and 70s. The other major thing that has happened recently is the ruling by the Supreme Court in Janus v. AFSCME. And the ruling in that case took away the ability of public sector unions to collect agency fees. When you're part of a public sector union, prior to Janus, you could opt out of union dues, but you couldn't opt out of what they called agency fees, or what the union would refer to as uh, fair fair share fees. So even if you decided to opt out of the union dues, you had to pay an agency fee or a fair share fee that would cover, theoretically at least, the cost of negotiating the contract, because the union has to defend uh, people in the workforce no matter whether they decide to be a member or not. So the idea is of the fair share fee or the agency fee is to get rid of the free rider problem in order to make up for you not being a member, but we have to negotiate your wages and benefits. You get higher wages and benefits because of the collective bargaining agreement we negotiate. You still have to pay your fair share in the cost of negotiating that contract, because we have to pay people to help negotiate that contract and do other union activities. So the Supreme Court ruled that those were a violation of free speech, that you can't force public employees to pay money to a labor union that they don't belong to, and that's a violation of the First Amendment. So the unions can no longer automatically deduct agency fees from everybody's paycheck in order to pay for uh, the activities of the union, negotiating a collective bargaining agreement. This was a devastating blow to public employees, or at least it was thought to be. For sure, we have yet to see what the full impact of the Janus decision is, because it's speculated that would happen is then you undercut the funding of the labor union, and once the labor union no longer has any money to operate, then you lose your union representatives, and you lose the ability to collectively bargain a contract. So then the union dies, and then you no longer have collective bargaining in that workplace. what we've seen post Janus is that we haven't seen the drop in membership that was expected. It was thought that membership would drop majorly because uh, if I'm a worker and I don't have to pay the fee for collective bargaining, then why would I pay for something I can get without paying? So it creates the free rider problem that somebody is going to free ride on the collective cause of negotiating a contract. Some people, sure, would opt out, and the unions can no longer deduct the dues and agency fees from your paycheck. So now they have to get it on their own from the members. But we haven't seen the decline quite that people were speculating we would see. Uh, Part of this is because the union saw it coming. Uh, the Supreme Court tied on a previous Supreme Court case when Antonin Scalia had passed away and the Supreme Court had 8 members. They tied on a similar case that would have taken away the ability to negotiate, collect agency fees. So the union saw this coming in advance and decided to try to adjust their strategy to make sure that people were committed to paying the fees to the union to negotiate wages and benefits. The other thing is states have responded post-Janus by, some of them have responded by trying to protect unions. So some states have passed policies that allow unions to charge fees to non-members when they provide legal counsel. So, like, if you decide to opt out of the union, and the union still has to represent you because you're in a unionized workforce, but then you get in trouble at work and you need legal representation to try and protect your job because you're trying to keep yourself from getting fired because you really messed up. The union has to protect you the same way that they would protect anybody else in the workplace because they represent that workplace. However, if they're going to if you as a non-member are going to use their services, some states are allowing the unions to then charge for that service so that they don't have to just give it to non-members. So you can't have a lawyer from the union in your workplace without contributing to the union. So some states have adjusted by passing these more pro-labor policies that protect the labor union from having to represent people who aren't paying members. That's been one of the consequences of Janus. So states have adjusted some policies, and we'll continue to see what they do in the future to either take away rights from labor unions further or protect their ability to negotiate. And it's pretty likely that we'll also continue to see teacher strikes and other labor strife in areas without collective bargaining. And that's all I have on the status of labor unions in the public sector today and public employee bargaining. Thank you.